Right on, Iran. This is Miss Geromin again, coming to you with more information about the AP6 elections and civil society. Iran, here we go. I picked these two pictures because I really think that we have this misconception in the West, specifically in the United States, that Iranians really hate our culture and hate us. So I liked this picture because it kind of demonstrated how the youth in Iran really do embrace Western style. They just aren't able to show it in public like we are, of course. Um, and the fact that this girl is showing her hair is kind of a protest to the clerics, the really like conservative clerics running the government in Iran. Also, she is protesting as part of the Green Movement, which I'll get to in a second. So, civil society pre-revolution, it was suppressed. The Shahs did not really allow for any uh, civil society that was anti-regime. And when the Shahs were in control of Iran, anti-regime meant being super Muslim. Okay, so being very deeply religious and being a cleric and being very conservative and coming together as groups of conservative Muslims, that was against state ideals, that was against state law. Okay, and that's what led to the revolution, is because those clerics, those middle class, those people who wanted to worship freely, they were being suppressed, and that's what led to the Islamic, or one of the reasons that we have the Islamic Revolution. All right, so post-revolution, it's still suppressed, but different groups and different types of organization are suppressed. Now, there was a time in Iranian history where there was a loosening of freedom of speech. So you saw that it was really conservative in the early 80s, like right after the Iranian Revolution. It loosened up a bit in the 90s, where there was some freedom of speech, there was some freedom of the press, and there was some allowance of some kind of civil societies and groups. Things got intense all over again when conservative president Ahmadinejad was elected. The government closed down newspapers, banned censored books and websites, and did not tolerate any kind of peaceful protest whatsoever. But today you do see some softening again. So it kind of ebbs and flows in Iran. So depending on who the president is and the climate of and the staunch conservatives, if staunch conservatives are running the government, then civil society is not going to be as open. But today, there is indication of some civil society, especially with young people. And you see this a lot with the middle class youth. These kids are very attracted to Western popular culture, and as they get educated and they learn more about the world and they see more from social media, they are attracted to the Western popular culture, and that's what is one of the causes for brain drain. Not only is there not economic opportunity, but there is frustration that the clerics aren't allowing them to open up their society. There's not freedom of speech, freedom of press. Protests and demonstrations, a lot of it is going to be reformist and youth. So in 1999, protests erupted in universities when the government shut down a reformist newspaper. 2002, demonstration by students. So again, there was a death sentence for a reformist academic in a university. So again, when reformists are being suppressed by really conservative ideals, you're going to see a backlash through protest and demonstrations. In 2007, there was demonstrations to commemorate International Women's Day, and Iran does not have the best track record for women, especially in the more rural and village parts of Iran. Not necessarily in the capital of Tehran or in the urban areas, but the rights of women are much more suppressed in the rural areas. Going on, probably the biggest protest and demonstration that you will need to know for the exam and be able to talk about would be the 2009 demonstrations against the election that was considered rigged. So following the presidential election, there was a disputed victory between Ahmadinejad and people who supported the other candidates, um, particularly Musavi. So this was called the Green Movement because that's the colors that was used to indicate his campaign. So people would wear green, the green shawls, the green head covers, excuse me. So the way that the Ahmadinejad and the way that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard handled this was the government sent thousands of troops to disperse the crowds. It ended up in violence, and there was deaths. Of course, the Iranian government is not going to admit to what the deaths were. The Ayatollah Supreme Leader declared that after the deaths, after the dispersion of these crowds, and after the ending of these protests, that society had been vaccinated against these germs, which I always thought was telling. I don't know if he did this on purpose, but we always associate germs with the green, and the green germs. So basically, shutting any protest or any oppositional government voices down in 2009 who felt like Ahmadinejad did not deserve the presidency. Okay, their elections. Okay, hold on. I'm going to pause this so I can animate it. I'm back. There we go. Okay, elections. I mean, they have pretty average turnout. Almost all of these countries have near the turnout that we have in the United States, if you really count it honestly. In 2009, the turnout was higher. And there was disputes that was probably because people wanted to vote against Ahmadinejad. But also the elections probably were rigged, so the vote count, probably the totals aren't completely honest and clear. For the president, I've explained this in class, but there is direct runoff elections, so that when you have a bunch of people running for president, maybe you have 5 candidates, the top 2 candidates then go on to a second election, and the winner of the majority wins that election and wins the seat. The thing is that all candidates have to be vetted or okayed by the Guardian Council, and they have to be proven as somebody who is going to uphold Sharia or Islamic law. So it's not anybody. It's just not anybody that could run for president. It is somebody that has to be okayed. And thousands of people apply to run for office in Iran, and many people are denied by the Guardian Council because they do want to handpick the people that are going to be able to win the election. They want to make sure that they can control them, or that they're going to uphold the theocracy that's in Iran. The legislative branch, okay, so that's the Majlis. They do a first past the post single member district distribution. The one thing that they do is they set aside seats for minority religions, and they don't set aside seats for the Bahari or the Baha'i. That's not, but they'll set aside seats for Christians and Sunnis, and I need to double check if they set aside seats for Jews, but they will make sure that some of the seats will be won by by religious minorities. But to be honest, they're dominated by conservatives, so conservatives are going to probably be the one to reform. Those are the ones that are going to be closest and tightest with the clerics. And oh, hold on. I tried to catch that announcement. It didn't work. So you have the Iranian Assembly of Experts election, and that's a separate one. So the Iranian Assembly of Experts election, 88 seats in the assembly, 108 theologians registered to run. Now, a theologian is a cleric, somebody who somebody who is religious. 161 candidates were approved. None of them were female. That shouldn't be a surprise. But the Assembly of Religious Experts, they're generally going to be clerics. They serve for 8 years, and these people are directly elected. Right. Women in the political system. We'll also go over this again probably when we get to civil rights and civil liberties of different groups. Women were granted the right to vote in 1963. Um, women can get an education in Iran. Um, they are accepted into Iranian universities, and a lot of university students are women. You can run for a seat in the Majlis, and there are some women who serve in the Majlis, but they cannot. They're never allowed to be president. It has to be a religious political man. And there are a lot of women in higher level workforce positions like government employees and working as doctors. Um, but it's still not anywhere near what we have in the United States, where it's about 33% of the labor force is women. Women really are, their rights are and equality really are still suppressed in Iran. All right, that's Iran in a very brief nutshell. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. I really hope you learned something. If you have any questions, just ask. Thanks, guys. Bye.